You know, there's more conversation about what divides us than there is about what unites us, about what divides us. We are united because on a spiritual level we are one.
The objective of the organization, We the World, is to facilitate cooperation on a global scale amongst groups and individuals dedicated to implementing solutions to the many challenges we face on the planet at this time. We the World wishes to inspire, inform, and involve more and more people in these solutions to bring about large-scale change.
We, as the people, have the power to make the changes that we need to make in the world.
All of these amazing people in places of power that are doing nothing.
We are horribly handling the coronavirus, horribly handling the climate crisis.
People act like it's nothing and it won't affect them, but soon it will. The people who really have that power don't really care. If we destroy all of this, then we'll have no other planet to live on.
I want to live in a world where children can look out the window and not see a sea of sadness, but somewhere where things thrive.
We're probably gonna have to, evolve.
And we can together create important global movements.
The earth is alive. Every step we take must be with love and caution.
Joining the organization gave me the opportunity to broaden my horizon, to broaden my mind, to open my mind to see that I'm not just the only person in this world. There are other people who live, and see the amazing things that young people are doing.
We the world. We the world.
We the world.
We the world.
We the world.
So this movement from a me consciousness to a we consciousness is not just nice, it is the only sustainable option.
Welcome everybody, and welcome to the Interdependence is the heart of global mind change. We're here to join together. This is an exploration. This is a journey that we're going together. So briefly introduce ourselves and then move right into our conversation. My name is David Wick. I'm with Pathways to Peace, Ashland Coastal Peace Commission, and the Rotary EClub of World Peace. I'll share all of that with you.
And I am Hezekiah Gabriel, and I am the Executive Director of Pathways to Peace. I also, for the past 30 years, have owned and operated a consulting firm called Gabriel Associates. We work locally and globally with nonprofit organizations, and I'm an ordained minister conducting interfaith and intercultural ceremonies, rituals, and gatherings.
I'm Joni Carley. I have a consulting and advising practice. I work with values-driven leaders. I'm also an ECOSOC representative at the United Nations, working on global citizenship and other things there. And I'm also an ordained interfaith minister and the author of The Alchemy of Power, Mastering the Invisible Factors of Leadership.
We're delighted to be together today, coming from yesterday, September 11th, which is the wonderful beginning towards the September 21st International Day of Peace. It's part of the evolution that we're all in, and that's what we're going to explore today. As we often do, let's just take a moment to come together in a moment of silence to just bring our energies together. Bring to mind why we're here today, why we're tuning in together here. Just take a couple deep breaths, relax, and bring our energy together. and know we are tuning into our interdependence at this moment. Thank you very much. I'm going to guide us in the beginning here through a PowerPoint, which is going to show you a variety of different things. Then Joni will talk about her perspective and engagement with interdependence, followed by Hezekiah. They'll do a deeper dive into what this means in various ways. So let me go ahead and move into so here we are. We're going to be going through a reflection on Pathways to Peace, the Cultural Peace, Ashland Cultural Peace Commission, and the Rotary EClub of World Peace, each of which I serve as a director, executive director, and president. Let's see, it's not advancing. Here we go. Okay. So the purpose here is to explore. This is an exploration. Together, the incontrovertible power, continual lessons, pit stops, and deep knowing of interdependence in our lives. The starting point is I'm going to talk about the 40-year journey that I've had with each of those organizations. And the highlight is I'm going to show you various images, symbols, language, mindsets that support a global mind change and peace building that demonstrates our interdependence. So I want you please to take a look at, as we go through this, what stands out for you and what opens your thoughts and your feelings about our interdependence. If you would, if you're inspired, please send that to me, any insights that you have or things you'd like to share, davidwick111@gmail.com. We would appreciate that. So one of the things I wanted to just be very clear about, which we all know, we live in the physical world. We live in the 3D world, which is dichotomy. It's the day and night, hot and cold, red and blue, all the different challenges of being. These are challenges to really understand we do live in interdependence, because wait a minute, it's different. It's not all the pure interdependent, and that's part of the challenge that we have. One of the things I think is useful to be aware of is Willis Harman. He's the author of The Global Mind Change. And he quoted, perhaps the only limits to the human mind are those we believe in. Take that one in. Pathways to Peace. The image of Pathways to Peace is the symbol which is created by with Avon Madison, deep inspiration that she had. The vertical is the spirit, is the what am I saying here? The consciousness, spirit, inspiration, higher values, which is the vertical part. Horizontal is this in the world, the actions, behaviors, activities. And the whole focus here is pathways to peace. There are many pathways to peace. And the vision statement is acting in concert. We do make a difference in the quality of our lives, our institutions, communities, and our planetary future. Through cooperation, we manifest the essential spirit that unites us amidst our diverse ways. One of the images and that Pathways to Peace has used over the years is imagine a world. Imagine a world where governments respect the human rights of all their citizens and settle disputes by the rule of law for the common good. And there's a whole list of those guiding principles. See there. Another is Pathways has helped to institute the International Day of Peace at the United Nations in 1981. And this is the coming together of all countries, all peoples on a day for peace and acknowledging the peace building that we all desire in our lives. But there's an image, there's a day. Another was to create the culture of peace, which is from the United Nations, a deep work that's been going on there. And Irene Kai, who's the co-founder of the Ashland Culture Peace Commission with me, she was inspired by David's story and to create an image, the Peace Dove image. And that image has been used as a symbol, logo of the Culture Peace Initiative, which is being used around the world. But that's another image. The Pathways to Peace has used the peace wheel, showing all sectors are important in the culture of peace, and connecting with the United Nations as a hub, as a place we come together. But again, how do we find our unity in this challenging 3D world? And there's the Ashland Culture Peace Commission here in Ashland to inspire, activate, and model a culture peace in Ashland, Oregon, which will serve as a beacon of light for all humanity. The Ashland Culture Peace, a community-wide movement dedicated to transforming our attitudes, behaviors, and institutions into ones that foster harmonious relationships with each other and the natural world. Again, the symbol, the culture of peace. Working off of the United Nations, the resolution and program of action on the culture of peace, helping people understand there's 8 action areas for a culture of peace. Deeply inspiring, deeply thought of to help us move forward. 2015, at the launch of the Ashland Culture Peace Commission, Irene Kai here discovered the World Peace Flame in Wales and was so inspired to bring the World Peace Flame to Ashland. And here that candle was lit with the flame in that original World Peace Flame. She worked for three years, and 2018, we had the lighting ceremony. It was an international event. Lighting ceremony is again, lighting the peace flame, World Peace Flame. The community comes together. People are inspired by a flame. This is the lamp, the oil lamp, and the students in Ashland, the middle school students, become the flame keepers, and they are inspired by being the flame keepers. And what that means in their lives, it starts to really affect them as the future leaders. This also brought to bringing the whole idea of the World Peace Flame, but invocation to the Ashland, the state of Oregon Senate. And this is an invocation at the Senate. Again, the message was, you are the flame. We're all in this together. Again, the peace flame played an important part in the Hiroshima and Nagasaki Day here in last August. And that was because it is the hope is moving forward. It's this inspiration for humanity away from the horrors that happened in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. We also work with the homeless, those unhoused, bringing the mayor and city council, again, to reach across divides, creating a global peace conference, bringing national, international, local, state, city leaders together around you are the flame. Again, this is where we're joined. We're all part of this together. There in the 2017 January Women's March, there is going to be it was going to be a really rather hostile march. The leaders came to us and said, no, here's a better idea, to work together to be a supportive march. It became one that was 15,000 people coming together in a positive energy of coming together. International Cities of Peace. We inspired Ashland to join the International Cities of Peace with the mayor. And again, International Cities of Peace coming together. It's a network, it's a joining, it's a coming together as Ashland is a city of peace. We did a ribbon tying ceremony for that. We worked with the police department, put a peace officer in this department, really helping the community police department relationship. Again, this coming together. With Rotary. What about Rotary? Rotary has a 1.2 million people membership, 35,000 clubs in over 200 countries and territories. Rotary vision, together we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe in our communities and ourselves. That's the message. The four-way test. What is it? The truth? Is it fair? Will it be goodwill and better friendships? Will be beneficial for all concerned. There are Rotary areas of focus. Basically, this year, the theme serve to change lives is the outreach globally, ending polio, coming together. And in addition, underscoring our interdependence is the Maharishi International University had a conference. I was there. They talked about how they have with transcendental meditation groups of people, significant numbers enough, they impact the crime rate, the death rate, a whole host of things in a community. Again, it's our interdependence. And here we are. What is our interdependence around the earth changes, the climate change? It affects everybody. There's no question about our interdependence. Thank you very much. Joni.
Thank you, David. So, there's nothing new in the universe after the Big Bang. All elements that ever were or will be came forward then. And if everything hadn't emerged exactly the way it had, I wouldn't be me, you wouldn't be you, and our lives would be really different than they are. And these same elements have just been coming together into form and breaking apart into formlessness and coming together again in new form and breaking apart. And that's been really what's been happening since the beginning of time. So as the universe continues to emerge, we are physically, emotionally, and spiritually co-arising with every other being on the planet and with the planet itself. We have always been, as we are now, one global community that is interdependently co-arising. And the only questions really are, how conscious are we of that fact that we are interdependently co-arising, and how much does it cost us to ignore that? The way that I work with most of this is in the area of global citizenship, where I vice chair the Cluster for Global Citizenship at the United Nations under the NGO Major Group. And I like the word global citizenship because it distinguishes a new foundation for our way forward. And that foundation is based on our interdependencies. It's not reaching toward, it's not aspiring toward, it's accepting that that's the reality. We are all in this together, whether we admit it or not, whether we're conscious of it or not. It's global citizenship says, foundationally, each of us and all of us share equal value in the interdependent weave of life. And again, we're looking at global citizenship not as something out there to be attained, but as the given. It is so. The only question is, are we living in alignment and accordance with that truth? Now, it's kind of a new way of looking at things, and certainly new in the UN landscape, but in reality, it's not very new at all, because it's really just a very ancient indigenous perspective. Indigenous people say, all my relations. And so they mean their sons and daughters and grandparents and parents as much as they mean our winged relations, our four-footed relations, our crawling relations. And in the indigenous perspective, even our water and our rock relations, that interdependent co-arising with all beings, all things. And that indigenous consciousness is really a way of looking, or a way of thinking of global citizenship consciousness. It's not a whole lot different. And the idea of consciousness is really important because at the end of the day, all social breakdowns reflect a crisis of consciousness. And all social breakthroughs reflect evolution of consciousness, because consciousness is causal. Consciousness comes first. The results of consciousness are what we produce. global citizenship consciousness is not an intellectual point of reference. We think of consciousness as mind, but it isn't mind. It's much more than mind. And so it's not an intellectual idea. We're situating this idea of our interdependence being the reality, situating that idea in global citizenship as a transformational point of reference, because we're holding interdependency as a core premise, as a given, and shifting that to understand that we are not also the delusion of separation that's kind of been our basis for so long, shifting to say, no, we're really not separate, we're really interdependent, then situating a new ontology, a new reality, a new way of being on top of that, that's a game changer. That's a paradigm changer. So I'm going to break down this idea of global citizenship consciousness. Global citizenship, a global citizen is any and every sentient being. And using the distinction of global citizenship helps us really put a stake in the ground for every sentient being to live life fully and to enjoy the common right to internal and external peace. And global citizenship is also a way of articulating that everyone's thriving is mutually codependent. So until we all thrive, really no one can depend on thriving. So global citizenship also takes a more kind of cyclical, co-creative approach. It's more dilated. The lens of global citizenship is a dilated lens. It's holistic. It's looking at the whole. And at the same time, it's really hyper-focused because it's looking at the quality of each strand in the weave, whether that's a microscopic strand or whether it's a universal galactic strand. It comes from that grander vision is part of global citizenship consciousness, and also that self-awareness, self-responsibility coming down to developing self. There's that connection. Global citizenship is that if we base the world on that, we would be just assigning much greater economic and social value to the things that people actually value the most. And what we value the most are the things that vitalize our lives, like relationships, beauty, truth, nature. So global citizenship-based transformation is about establishing norms for vitality, norms for thriving, norms for supporting every global citizen's happiness and well-being. And that becoming the basis, not the afterthought, not the something to strive toward, but to the something that we make happen first. And so that's global citizenship. And I want to talk about consciousness a little bit, because consciousness is really where it's at in terms of making transformation happen. And once our basic human physical needs are met, people absolutely everywhere, the data is very clear on this, they value the invisible things. They value the things that happen in the domain of consciousness. Things like connection, meaning, compassion, ethics, joy, purpose, all of those are elements of consciousness. So it's an intelligence that lies beyond thought processes. And it's also, consciousness is a primal generator. It is the primal generator of what we have. It's also the interpreter. So it's like the alpha and the omega of our reality. Consciousness always precedes manifestation because consciousness is causal. And global citizenship consciousness, now bringing these two concepts together, is an awareness or a knowingness of our interdependent co-arising. It's a common vision for a world that works for everyone based on understanding of Ubuntu, the African understanding. I am because you are. You know, if you had not emerged like you are, no matter who you are and how well we know each other, I would not be me because Ubuntu, we are because we are, each other are. You can think of it the way John Lennon put it, I am he as you are me, and we are all together. That's global citizenship consciousness. And the nature of consciousness is that it's always expanding. And so is our awareness of our interdependency. And so it's an alive thing. It's not something we recognize and codify. It's something that is always emerging, always alive. And so the civic space for global citizenship isn't really just about equitable access to resources, which is often where the conversation starts. But we have to lift that conversation into much higher ground if we really want to shift toward unity and living in peace. We have to build economy and social structures that more accurately value the things that people actually value, the things like relationships, beauty, and nature. And we have to make systems that are more accurate in how they factor in the invisibilities, like our interdependency and like our consciousness. Hezekiah, I hand it over to you.
Thank you so much, Joni. That was so lovely. And David, thank you. I just want to begin by thanking whoever is with us today, really being present as we're exploring these ideas. And to say that there's great wisdom that in this moment we can't access, but we validate and know that all of you have wisdom to share around this topic of interdependence. And we decided that we would model interdependence because we all come to unity, to interdependence through our diversity, having our diverse ideas, our opinions, our backgrounds. All of those are valuable when we come together to support interdependence. So thank you for joining this collective journey as David invited you into. And for me, this journey is really about remembering who we are, remembering why we're here, and we're remembering that we can't be separate. We are inherently interdependent. So you feel it, right, everyone, or you wouldn't be tuning in to this particular place and time. So we're here together, co-creating, as my colleagues have talked about, a new earth born out of and built upon Indigenous prophecy. And we celebrate that awareness, that knowledge that we, the collective we, are lifted in our intentions and actions by so many others, 7 generations before us, 7 generations ahead of us, and here in the now that we are creating, together creating. So today we're focused on interdependence, which from my perspective is a sacred principle, practice, and a lifestyle. So while dependence is ultimately disempowering, interdependence is empowering. Dependence on others robs us of our ability to feel whole, confident, and competent in our world. Interdependency supports our unique contributions, our gifts and talents, adds meaning to our lives, and validates our inherent worth. Dependence keeps us in bondage, while interdependence is liberating. So we play out our commitment to interdependence in much of the work we do in co-creation with others. Interdependence demands relationship. Interdependence plays a key role in co-creation. When we talk about cooperation, it means that we agree to work together. Collaboration means we bring our respective resources and assets to the table to achieve a collective goal. Co-creation means we dedicate who we are in our entirety and all that we bring to co-create something new, a new outcome, a new way of being, a new earth. Without the practice of interdependence, we cannot create the space needed for co-creation. You know how the practice of interdependence looks. It manifests in taking time to listen, to encourage differences of opinions and perspectives, and it's grounded in compassion, kindness, and respect, as Joni indicated. In ancient times, interdependence was a given because survival of the tribe meant that there needed to be dependence on each other, and that working together meant that we could survive. That is true for us today as well, although often we forget that interdependence means survival, not only of each of us, but of every living thing and of our planet as a whole. So today, in our global mainstream societies, we've forgotten our essential need for interdependence often. Instead, we place value on dominance, winners versus losers, right versus wrong, giving versus receiving, which creates duality. And in that duality, we have the barrier to interdependence. This judgment-based consciousness, we've talked a lot about consciousness because it is at the core, has bred war, division, violence, oppression, and abuse. What we might call, and I do call, separation consciousness. We are out of balance. In these times, we're called into unity consciousness. Our very survival as a species on our planet is dependent on that. And interdependence, the principle and practice, is needed for a global shift in consciousness, as Joni so eloquently articulated. This is heart work. As the Eastern traditions tell us, lead with your heart and your mind will follow. So we ask, how does interdependence look to you? What role does it play in your everyday interactions? I find that working interdependently is liberating. And so I'd like to close my little piece with my favorite quote from Lila Watson. And Lila says, if you've come to help me, you're wasting your time. But if you come because your liberation is bound to mine, then come and let us work together. David, back to you.
Wonderful. I really love that. That's a great comment, statement. I think that from my perspective, living life, we are in, it is a constant learning journey. We're in the schoolhouse. The physical world is the schoolhouse, which is continual learning, continually understanding who we are and who we are individually, who we are collectively. And that's part of the challenge, clearly, the daily challenge. And to look around, well, who have been the guides to how we function? And we're all learning how to do that. We learn how to do that within our families. Certainly they have, disagreements or upsets or, but it's really, there's always I really believe there's always going to be challenge. There's always going to be, conflict on some level, but it's how we deal with that, how we work with that, how we move through that and find, the solutions, find the ways forward that makes all the difference. So what comes to mind is the everything from the spiritual traditions that are many different traditions. In my understanding and learning, over the years, is that the core, they're all very similar and even the same, about care, about love for each other, about how we treat each other makes all the difference. And I think the core of it is discovering who we are, and it really is discovering that we are really of the same essence, same source. The journey, and as I had was trying to indicate with looking at the three different organizations, three different entities, is that how do we talk about this? How do we learn together, not just individually, but how we learn this together? What languages do we use? What symbols do we use to come together? So Joni was talking about global citizenship and that expanded view. That's new territory, for most people. And so that's part of a mindset shift. And I think we're in the midst of Mother Nature has many ways of helping us evolve. And I think that's another important piece. We are in evolution. If you take a look back in history, back in time, human beings, you go back, thousands of years, many thousands of years, or, the evolution of civilization, the evolution of our culture and influences along the way. So we're in a major influence right now with COVID, with the pandemic. Well, how is that changing us now? And how is that showing that we are really interdependent? Because we don't want to be giving that to each other. And how about the global climate change? There's no one who's not affected by that. No one lives in the bubble and is not affected. Like, no, we all are. So we're all in this together. But it's really, how do we function together? How do we move forward? And I do believe and understand we're in a major transformational time, a major growth time in how we do move forward together more consciously. It really is about consciousness. And we're growing and learning how to do that all the more, together. So that's the journey and the exploration. So interdependence is something that do I think about that very often? It's just like, I don't think about that word very often. And it is understanding that is really important for me to be aware of. I think to be aware of daily that, I live interdependently. Doesn't have to be dependent on somebody, but interdependently, because I need to carry my weight. I need to carry my share of my, living and learning and growing. So I'll leave it at that at this point. So Hezekiah.
Yes, so in this process of just being able to invite you into the sandbox with us, we thought it would be fun if we did some exploration together around what I'm calling the sacred and universal principles underlying interdependence. And so I am going to state a principle, and then Joni and David, whichever would like to begin, will expand on that principle as it relates to interdependence. And so, so I'm going to throw a principle out, and then I will follow as well with anything that needs to be added. So the first principle is there is a shift occurring. David, Joni, who'd like to go first? Maybe I'll call on Joni just for efficiency.
Good, great.
Well, I think that word occurring is really important. And I think it's really hard to grab on because we're not at the beginning of it and it's not coming.
Oh.
It's something that it's happening. And for many of us in more privileged places, it's not so apparent. But many of our friends and the people we don't know who we're interdependently co-arising with, it's very apparent. And so that shift, though, is really, at the consciousness level, I mean, many people are clear that the planet's shifting. The consciousness level, it's a shift from separation consciousness to unity consciousness.
Yeah.
And it's a shift it's an opportunity. I think what we're living in right now is a unprecedented opportunity in history, given how connected we are and all of that. We can now be consciously causal in our evolution. And we can do that in a completely inclusive way. That's a groundbreaker. That's an incredible opportunity. It's ours for the taking if we develop the consciousness to take it.
Wonderful. David?
Well, I would say that absolutely we're in a shift. The shift is happening. And one perspective is that we knew that we were going to be here in the 60s and 70s. And knowing how unsustainable our practices were, our energy, all things is not sustainable. And that, it's going to hit the fan at some point. Well, here we are. We're in the midst of that. And Yeah, and also being part of in uncharted territory, it's how do we function? And it's not by old ways or the ways that the problem solving has happened, worked, perhaps in the past. One of the things with Irene Kai and I, it is being present. Is being present and conscious of what is called for right now, and being open to new ideas and new choices, and not being stuck in old ways, and which is a challenge. I mean, that's a challenge, and again, and we're in the 3D world. But I think that, how do we do that individually and also together? Because it is the way that, we are, I think, as you said, we will, survive together is the best way.
One way how we do that, David, is stay curious.
Pardon?
Yes.
Stay curious.
That's
Stay
it. Oh
curious.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and so that's also watching, our mind and our emotions. Like, oh my God, it's awful. I can't stand it. It's just and understanding that a lot of people hit that. I mean, we live in a privileged situation. We're not on the street. Where people are. But it is a whole lot as to how are we accepting or seeing things, and how how it impacts us, making a choice.
How we interpret that. And so the only thing I would add, because it's all beautiful, is that that shift is like this. It's not like this and then this. So we are already in it as we are it. We are that shift.
Right.
And I think it's important to mention that it's easy for us to minimize and saying it's the work makes it too big, because it is about grace and ease. I believe that. But it's easy for us to minimize the work that we're already doing, because it takes place in our interactions, in the way we live our lives, as well as the work that we've chosen to do, what we came here to do. And so I think, yes, there is a shift occurring. So the next kind of sacred principle I would lift up in relationship to interdependence is just that. We are all connected. David, do you want to go first on this one?
That we are all connected. Mm-hmm. Well, I go to my spiritual journey and learning, and certainly it's been very much in the early days of the Christian focus, and absolutely a very close relationship I felt personally with Jesus, but and learning more about the broader scope of spirituality, that it is all things are spiritual in this world. Is just a matter of energy. It's just a matter of refining energy here. But that my view and my experience is that we're all from the same place. And so that it also is, we as human beings are all made the same. I mean, physically, in every way. And it's our consciousness that is the challenge, in terms of, again, you have to come back into this physical world. It's a challenging place to be, and that's why it's so powerful a place to learn. But I think anyhow, we go on and on. But I think absolutely, interdependent. We come from the same place.
Yes, thank you. And Joni?
Yeah, I really do think the work is just getting over the delusion of separation.
Yes.
It's just not the truth. And, I go back to that example from the Big Bang, supposedly I have a couple molecules of Jesus and Buddha in me, and you do too. And, I mean, there's really this idea that we're all that different is really just delusional. I have a huge article about the spiritual commons coming out in Cosmos Journal this coming month. The entire journal is about the spiritual commons. And I think, when we look at all connected, it's a lot harder to see when you think of a community to community, or, even neighbor to neighbor. But thinking of it at the deeper, more subliminal, more consciousness levels, we are really all connected. You know, we do have a source, that spark of life, that whether it's a cat, you can put all the elements of a carrot in a lab dish, but you can't make a carrot. Right? Because there's that spark of life, there's that something, right? And it's unique in each of us, but it's common to all of us. And to me, that's the essence of connection.
Right. I also see that I just want to read in the chat here, there's a comment that interdependence is essential in co-awakening from the illusion of separation.
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's so true.
And then go ahead.
No, go ahead, David.
I was just going to say, and then also the comment from a Hopi elder, this is the 11th hour. All that we do now must be done in a sacred manner.
Yes, beautiful. A couple of decades ago, I was called into creating with a group of really enlightened individuals a modern day mystery school. And the name was to be the Academy of Healing. And it was like, the Academy of Healing, what does that really mean? That we're supposed to focus on kind of the healing arts. And it wasn't until a decade or more later that I realized that we are all healing from this perception of separation. All of us on the planet are healing from that myth, that notion, that perception of separation. And I also wanted to add that in this, because of course we are all moving then in unity consciousness to recognizing that we are all one. And that means that harm to one, as you stated, Joni, is harm to all. And kindness, compassion, and love for all means that we all benefit from that as well. And we're also, I think there's a gaining recognition that everything is provided to us here. It's that barrier of dominance that gets in the way. So I remember this study I read about beehives, and that while they differ from location to location based on the nectar that's available, that when the scientists took a look at a beehive, they found over 10,000 pathogens. And while it will take decades for them to unpack those, they believe that there's probably every healing that we need in that simple beehive. Every medicine, everything we need. But of course, we always believed that mankind was smarter than nature. And so we missed what's obvious to Indigenous folks and is obvious in what we're provided. So,
and that's kind of the ignorance of interdependence, right? Like,
yes.
We're interdependent with the system of the bees.
That's
and yet
right.
we kind of, there's an arrogance in sort of holding ourselves as something other than that.
Right,
yes.
right.
Instead, we have to create something artificial versus something that's already been provided to us for thousands of years.
Right.
So a third principle, and we're getting down on time, but this is so wonderful. Thank you, both of you, are that we are powerful creators and creation is our birthright.
Beautiful.
It's not only our birthright, it is our godliness, right? If there is a God, if there is a great spirit, or, you know, the primal consciousness, it is a creative. And we don't know what else, right? It is creative. And so our capacity to create is our divinity, is that spark of life within us. And so it is primary. And that is part of making this great transition, is to give creativity its due in terms of how we value it in our culture, how we value it in education, how we value it in our social systems, You know, we've got to find greater valuation for that creative spark and for juicing that spark.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what ties in with that is understanding, and more is being understood even scientifically around frequency, about energy, and that has to do with our creativeness and creative ability in having higher or finer frequencies that we attune to, or that we express from that place, which is really having a greater impact, and that's part of our evolution to finer frequencies. Also, you go back to the the neurosciences and the physics,
quantum physics,
yes. All that, just like, and all of this is being discovered and unfolding more and more. That's part of our evolution.
Yes. Yes, we are that expression of the divine in human form. There's this beautiful rabbinic saying that I love. And it is that every time a human being walks down the street, a choir of angels cries, make way, for the image of God is approaching. And I think that what I would add to the beauty that's already been spoken is that we are constantly creating, but are we creating what we wish to create in our world? And so just to be aware that we have full capability of creating the goodness, the peace, the beauty, and we just need to be intentional. It's also said that our words last 1,000 years in the universe. And so intentionality with our mind, with our spoken word, and to make sure that we're not creating our own suffering in our lack of awareness. So this has been a beautiful conversation, and we could go on with the other sacred principles, but I think we're winding down in our time here.
10 minutes.
Yes. And so what we really wanted to do, because we believe in the power of vision, is to give you an opportunity, anyone who is here with us, give you an opportunity to really touch and feel and experience interdependence. And what we know about vision is that once it anchors in our heart, we automatically gravitate toward that vision. And it becomes both a touchstone as well as a motivation for us to continue to do our co-creative work. That is, brings us into unity consciousness, brings us into oneness. So at this point, I would ask that if it's easy for you to pick up a pencil and a piece of paper, and we're going to take a little meditative journey into the future to experience interdependence. And then we'll allow a moment at the end of the meditation for you to track what it is you saw, what it is you experienced, what it is you felt in that experience as your vision for interdependence. So let's once again just slow down our breath, breathe a little bit more deeply and a little bit more slowly. If it helps you to count, we can count 5 counts on the intake, 5 counts on the exhale, as we just for a moment breathe together. The one breath of the one heart beating together. Allow the chair of the floor to hold you. Sink into the embrace of the divine, however you experience that. And now we're going to take a little journey into the future. That new earth that we are co-creating. And we're going to see interdependence in action. So in this journey into the future, find yourself in a familiar space. And in this familiar space, where you are safe, you are embraced, you're nurtured, interdependence is occurring all around you. So look around you and see it, see interdependence in action. How does it look? What is occurring? How does it feel? What is happening? Take it in. See what you see in your mind's eye. Find the joy. Find the sense of unity. See interdependence in action. And when you've had that full experience, then come back to this time and place and write down that experience. And if you so desire and would like to share, you can put some words about your vision of interdependence in the chat. Thank you, all of you. We hope that this vision of interdependence does become your touchstone, your motivation, as we together co-create unity and oneness, Yes, and love in action. Because love is the great transformative energy in the universe. Everything is manifest out of that. And David, I turn it back to you for our closing.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Hezekiah and Joni and everyone who's joined us, been part of this. And let us, just continue this conscious journey about our interdependence, and let us, take this next week at least two opportunities, two actions that are consciously putting us into a state of interdependence, or that we're experiencing that, or we want to explore that. Whatever that may mean. One of the things that came to me was I found myself in a natural setting by a stream, by a creek, and there are other people there, but it was that we are nature. It was like we as human beings are nature, are of nature, and we're conscious of that. And not that we're separate, but that we're conscious of being of the essence of nature. So it's been a privilege to be here. And again, it's an exploration of consciousness. And also, as they began, how do we show up in our different organizations, our entities? Because we're all part of an organization of some kind. The ones I had explained or gave demonstrations of are more specific, specifically around peace building and around moving forward in interdependent ways. But what are the language we use? What are the symbols we use that really make a difference, that are really useful in this journey? So I'm delighted to be here. Just final thoughts, Joni, Kez?
There are some beautiful visions coming out in the chat that really, really make my heart sing. And so I just want to thank you, Joni, for being here in this moment with David and I. And thank you, David, for this opportunity, and deep bows of gratitude to everyone here. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both. Thank you everyone for being here. Bye-bye.
Bye now.